How's it going? It's August 31st, 2025, and Brenda is back with you. We are in the city of Benicia, California. We're actually on the outskirts of Benicia. We're way out here in the country. It's really nice out here. It's pastoral, lots of rolling hills. There's some farms out here, way out in the middle of nowhere, basically. And we're actually standing in a very infamous spot in true crime history. For those of you that have seen some of my previous videos, you know I have a little bit of a true crime affinity. And we're actually standing at the scene of what is believed to be the very first Zodiac killing, which occurred here on December 8, 1968 at this little gravel turnout right along Lake Herman Road. This is Lake Herman Road, and as you can see, it's a little country road, even though there is a fair amount of traffic driving through here. But it's pretty isolated. There's a lake, believe it or not, called Lake Herman, about a half mile up the road going west. There's a little recreational area there called Lake Herman, and then heading back east, you're only about 2 miles away from the freeway. I believe it's Interstate 680. I believe it's an interstate. It's Freeway 680 is only about 2 miles east of here. So this is actually a pretty easy to locate area. And I've always wanted to drive to this spot, because I've been to the scene of the Paul Stein murder, another confirmed Zodiac killing, which occurred back in San Francisco. But this is where Betty Lou Jensen and David Farraday were murdered back on December 8, 1968. And at that particular time period, this little turnout, this gravel turnout, was known as a lover's lane. This was basically a local lover's lane where a lot of the amorous teenagers would drive out to, especially on a nice evening, late evening, nighttime. A lot of the teens would come out here out in the country, and they'd park and they'd do what teens have a tendency to do when they're by themselves and when they're with their significant other. And those two particular teenagers were just parked here one night, and unfortunately they were murdered. A car pulled up at some point right around 11 p.m. on the night of December 18th. And by all accounts, the murderer, which we now know as the Zodiac killer, approached the car and fired a few warning shots. It's believed he fired a few warning shots to get the teens to basically comply with his orders, to get them a little bit riled up and startled. And David Liberty was sitting in the driver's seat, and he exited the vehicle and he walked around towards the passenger vehicle where his date, Betty Lou Jensen, was seated. And he was actually shot in the head. They were both shot and killed. He was shot first. They were both killed with a 22 caliber revolver, 22 caliber gun. Betty Lou Jensen actually tried to flee. She exited the vehicle and tried to run, and then she ended up shot in the back multiple times, and she was killed. So unfortunately, two teenagers lost their lives, and that was believed to be the very first verified Zodiac killing. The first verified killing attributed to the perpetrator that we now know as the Zodiac killer. And unfortunately, as you all know, he was never identified, he was never apprehended, and he's basically just going to go down in history as a unknown killer. And you can imagine how dark it would be out here at night, late evening at night. I mean, because there's really not much here. And I'm assuming that this area hasn't changed much since 1968, because it's, by all accounts, it was way out in the country back then. And there wasn't much activity in the area or development back then. And as you can see, it's still pretty much the case. It's mostly just wide open spaces, country roads. There's some cattle. There's a few farms in the area with some cattle grazing out in the fields. And there is a water treatment facility, a pumping station that was here back in 1968. And I can zoom in a little bit, and you can see the pumping station off in the distance behind the bales of hay. So, there's some development out in that direction. but by all accounts, this is pretty much a rural area. I mean, this is about as rural as you can get. And like I said, the Freeway 680 is only about 2 miles away from here. And there's a gas station, a 76 gas station, a gas station on the corner, United Oil gas station, Mini Mart. And there's the entrance to the pumping station not too far up this road. But, you know, it's basically just a very isolated rural country area. So it's not hard to imagine, you know, something nefarious happening out here. You know, there's not many people around, not much traffic. It's isolated, it's dark. And Brenda's wondering what the heck we're doing out here, because it's warm today. Like I said, it's August 31st, and it's, you know, it's probably close to 90 degrees, and it's still early in the day. And Betty Lou Jensen's body was basically laying right where my car's parked. And then David Farraday was basically found laying almost dead center in the middle of the gravel turnout right here. So yeah, I mean, just a very unfortunate circumstance, you know. And like I said, the responsible party was never identified. He was never apprehended, obviously. And this was basically, like I said, the first known killing attributed to the perpetrator that we now know as the Zodiac killer. And he went on to commit several more murders and attacks in the greater Bay Area. And I'm a little amazed that this little gate's open, because of all the times that I've seen photos of this turnout, this gate has always been locked. It's always been locked. It's been secured, padlocked. But today it just happens to be open. I was going to walk a little bit down the gravel road, but there is a no trespassing sign. So I don't want to get accosted or shot at. So I think I'll just stop at this point. But this gives you an idea of, you know, where the gravel road leads to. It leads out in the direction of the pumping station. There's cattle gates here. Like I said, there's cattle roaming around in the area. But yeah, this is it. This is the location. I'm going to end the video basically with just a little drive away from the scene. We're heading back towards Freeway 680, heading east, and this just gives you a better idea of what the area looks like, how rural it is. This little turnout to the right, that will take you out towards that pumping station that I mentioned, the water treatment facility, out in that direction. But yeah, you know, it's just really unfortunate that the perpetrator was never identified. There were several suspects over the years, Arthur Lee Allen being one of the main suspects, but there was never anything more than just circumstantial evidence tying anyone to any of these crimes. Arthur Lee Allen seems to be the most popular suspect, but again, there was never any substantial evidence linking him to any of the murders. But I hold out hope that, you know, maybe with all the advancements in genealogy, DNA, different types of technology that enables law enforcement maybe to link certain perpetrators to crimes. I mean, just like they did with the Golden State Killer, Joseph D'Angelo, how they ended up identifying him several decades after his last known crimes. Maybe they can do something similar to the Zodiac. But the problem with the Zodiac Killer is that there's no way to know whether or not there's any actual physical evidence from the killer in possession by any of the law enforcement agencies. So there's no way of knowing that, you know, do they even have any evidence by which to identify him or to exclude other people? That's one of the sticking points. You know, they do have some blood smears and some partial prints and some smeared fingerprints, but there's no way of knowing whether or not any of that evidence comes from the actual killer. So obviously that presents a major issue when it comes to trying to identify a perpetrator. And here we are at the freeway, Interstate 680. We are heading back home to SoCal. Thank you for watching.